Hi, Charlotte Smith with Bladen Online. I have with me Dane Smith. Can you tell me what you're here for, sir?
Yes, ma'am. We plan to protest for parents who might have been like-minded as far as it being time for their children to return to school. We feel like the board, under the direction and recommendation of Dr. Taylor, have jumped to a conclusion here that's just not satisfactory for us. We feel like parents should have the right to decide when it's the time for their children to return to school. They've taken that decision from us.
Thank you. Miss Joanna Stewart here, your Bladen County Schools parent. Is that correct?
Yes, ma'am.
Why are you here at the protest?
I'm here because I feel like we weren't given an option as to what our children did this year. I understand that we're not ready to everyone go back to school in classroom learning. I understand that, but I feel like we should have been given an option. I wish that we had been asked. I wish that we could stagger schedule. I mean, an option, really. My children, I feel like, need to be in school. I did fill out the online survey that I just remember it asking if we had internet access, which we do where we are right now. But my children have questions that they need to ask a teacher. I'm doing them a disservice by trying to teach them. I can assure you there are questions that I cannot help them with. And the teachers they were receptive. They were trying. I understand and I appreciate their efforts. I do. I want us to move forward.
Okay. Would you be willing to sit on a committee? Have you been asked to sit on a committee or anything like that?
I've not been asked, but I would be willing.
Okay. All right. Well, thank you for your time.
Thank you, ma'am.
My name is Melissa Williams.
Melissa Williams, are you a Bladen County Schools parent?
Yes, ma'am.
Okay. How many students do you have?
2,
And so why are you guys out here?
for education.
Your sign says fund our education, not Meals on Wheels with education dollars. So you're about education, funding education?
Yes, ma'am.
At this time, I'd like to call the Monday, August the 10th, 2020 meeting to order. At this time, Dr. Taylor, any citizens participation?
Yes, Mr. Carroll, we have citizen participation from one individual, and Mrs. Newton will share that with the board now.
We received one comment on July the 22nd at 5:43 p.m. from Whitney Packer, and her comment reads, "To whom it may concern, our family has concerns regarding classroom options for all grades. As a healthcare worker, I am aware of the risk of contracting COVID-19, but if we follow CDC guidelines, why can't all grades have the option for in-class learning? My husband and I work full-time jobs, so it is difficult for us to work and come home to teach our son efficiently. Not only that, finding someone to keep our son daily is also an issue. This past spring, we completed work packets at home as we were unable to receive internet in our area. This strategy was not very effective for us. We completed the work to get it done, but as far as learning and retaining the information, we believe our son needs the structure of a classroom to receive the full effects. It is very important to us that our son, who wants to return to a classroom, receives the education he needs and deserves. We understand it may not be full weeks of classroom time, but any at all would be helpful. We have considered other options, such as private and charter schools, but the financial aspect, drive distance, and before or after school care would make it very difficult. Our son will be in 5th grade this upcoming school year at BMS. If we have an in-classroom option, BMS is much more convenient for us than to have to find and depend on someone to take and pick up our son at another school. We've always enjoyed attending Bladen Borough School. The the teachers and staff are kind, and our son has done well in learning. Please reconsider the options for school openings. Thank you for your time. And that's all of the comments that we have received.
And Mr. Chair, that is all we have. And if we get additional ones for the next board meeting, we will be sure to share those with the board.
Thank you for the citizens' participation. And at this time, I will turn it over to you, Dr. Taylor, for the update on the virus.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Just a few items I want to share for an update we're running concerning COVID-19. The first is with our device distribution. As you are aware, we are distributing devices both today and tomorrow, the next 2 days. Students will be picking up devices. If I'm not mistaken, Mr. Atkinson, I think the high school students kept their devices.
Yes, all we're doing today is tomorrow's high school freshmen, and then middle school is Wednesday, Thursday, elementary is Monday, Tuesday next week.
Okay. And so those will be the days that we will do the remaining distribution. But we're very excited about what we're seeing. I do want to share with the board that the supply chain has been severely disrupted for school districts across the nation. So a lot of districts, including us, have ordered devices. They're going to that could be upwards of a month, maybe two. Fortunately, we are in a position where we have devices that we used from last year. We've got various refresh cycles throughout the year. And so at this point, we do have enough devices that we can service all of our students, kindergarten through 12th grade. And we actually have about an additional 200 devices that we have at our disposal. So we'll certainly keep you updated on how the distribution of devices goes. We're happy to see what we witnessed today. In terms of COVID protocols in schools, I did want to share this with the board so we will be aware of where we are with this. And we did have an opportunity to meet with the health director and re-emphasize what are the proper protocols. And so we will be following those anytime that we have a case to occur in the school. And essentially what happens is that once an individual has been identified, they will be notified by the health department and our Bladen County schools. And there's a protocol that they follow in terms of contact tracing. And so we just want to assure everybody that we do have those particular things in place. And we did have an opportunity to meet to make sure that we were following the proper protocol. I know there's, Mr. Chair and board, there's been a lot of talk and concern related to the virtual learning and the remote learning that's going to take place. Again, we want to re-emphasize to our public that all the plans that we have for remote learning are going to be vastly different than what people witnessed and identified in the spring. We remind everyone that we were in the middle of a school year. All school districts across the state were asked to convert immediately to online learning, and we had to, along with everyone else, work hard to put something in place for students. And so we do want to reassure people that teachers this week are going to be involved in various PDs to ensure the proper implementation of what we call our virtual or remote learning plan. I will share with the board again that the state used our remote learning plan as part of the template that they rolled out for the entire state in terms of what it should look like. So we're very proud of that fact. Also, CNI has shared the expectation, the various kinds of contact with students. And so this is the expectation that we have for all of our staff, that it's not just packets of information that's being sent out. There are online sessions, live sessions that they will do, Google Classroom sessions that they will do, contact by telephone, just the various things that they've got to do to, one, deal with the academic needs of students, but as well as the social emotional needs for kids, for all of our students. And so I had an opportunity to go out and visit some of the schools today. The teachers are very excited about this opportunity. And we look forward to providing a good service to our students and our parents. I do want to also add that our pre-K students are scheduled to return on 7 September, but Ms. Brown and the entire pre-K staff are still waiting for instruction from the state about any changes that they may make moving forward. But at this point, we will be ready to receive those students when they come back.
Any questions for Dr. Taylor?
Yes, sir.
Yeah, with the governor extending his phase 2 out 5 weeks, does that change anything for our K through 4 starting up after the 4-week period?
No, that doesn't change anything. We're still going to be on the same goal for 14 September. And so we hope that nothing changes, again, from the governor's office that causes us to have to detour from that. But at this point, we're still on go for kindergarten through 4th grade. So no changes.
And one more, are we still looking for options to try to get everybody back in school? Or is it
Mr. West actually had a discussion this morning during our administrative leadership, and that is one of the things that we will continue to look at, what various options may be available to us. We know a big part of that will have everything to do with the number of students that decide to return on school on the 14th versus those that are continuing to remain virtual. And so once we have an opportunity to see what those numbers look like, then that gives us the opportunity to expand beyond kindergarten to 4th grade.
Yes.
The question at this point is to prepare for all K through 4 students to return. Now we know that's probably not going to happen, but by chance, the majority chose that option, that we have to be ready for them. So that is the planning phase that we have to look at how we would bring in additions.
Dr. Taylor.
Yes, sir.
Yes, for some teachers that have underlying health issues, some of them are concerned about going back into the classroom. What kind of options do they have?
And that's a very good question, Mr. Singletary. We have some teachers that do have those underlying conditions. They've been able to bring notes from their physicians. And so for those, they will have the option of working remotely. If any one of those teachers happen to be a kindergarten through 4th grade teacher, then we would have to look at ways that those kids would have to be served by someone else. There is also some federal leave that they will have available to them. Now this is a little different from the leave that they had in the spring, where the state essentially allowed them to be able to work remotely under those COVID situations. And so anything that they have moving forward, if it's medically identified, they would either have federal leave or any personal sick leave that they would have. And so we are hoping that anyone with underlying health conditions, that we would be able to have them do remote learning. If I'm not mistaken, under item 9.03, we do have the updated teleworking agreement. And so while kindergarten through 4th grade would come back to school, all of our teachers are expected to come back now unless they have one of those conditions. And that's why we have the teleworking thing there for them. So I reassure our employees that we are looking out for their best interest.
So if they get a doctor's note from their doctor or their physician, they won't have to use their sick leave or annual leave. They have, like you said, they would use the what they call the federal leave.
Well, not necessarily. If they have a note from their doctor, we're going to do everything we can to allow them to work remotely, and then they wouldn't have to use any leave at all. If for some reason they have some condition that requires them to not be able to work remotely, then it would be any leave that they have. If they didn't have any, they could opt to use that federal leave. So Dr. Vader, you correct me if I'm wrong about this, but if they have their leave and the federal leave, it would make sense to use their leave because the federal doesn't pay 100%. Okay, I'll let Dr. Beatty speak to the leave piece because I don't want to get that wrong.
They use their leave, and the federal leave has only paid at a third, whether it's 1/3 or 2/3, and then their leave could be used to supplement it to make them whole.
Okay, so in other words, if whatever fraction of the federal leave that was not covered, they could use their personal leave to make up the difference to keep them whole. So yeah, so they would have that option of using the federal leave in conjunction with this, so they would remain at 100%.
All right.
Thank you for the question, Mr. Secretary.
Thank you, Dr. Taylor. At this time, child nutrition updates.
Good afternoon, board. Just wanted to give you an update on our summer feeding program. In March 16th, we actually began using the summer feeding program because of waivers that were written to the USDA, which allowed us to move from the National School Lunch Program to summer feeding. So we have continued summer feeding through July 31st. Through that time, we served over 617,000 meals to the students of Bladen County, not just Bladen County schools, but Bladen County. With the summer feeding program, you just have to be 18 years and under to participate in the program. You don't have to be a part of Bladen County schools. This waiver has been approved from USDA through August 31st. So we will begin on August 17th delivering meals with the summer feeding program to give us time to transition back to the National School Lunch Program. On September 1, the National School Lunch Program will be back in effect, and this will be very different. So when we're delivering on the buses, we will have to ask the student and or parent, and the parent can receive the meal still because of a waiver that has been approved by USDA, but they will have to provide us with the student's name and power school number in order to receive that meal. So the children that are younger that we've been serving, we will not be able to serve. I wanted to make sure that you knew this before it started on September 1, because you may get calls for this. The North Carolina Department of Public Instruction is continuing to talk with USDA and still asking them to consider this waiver. But at this point, the waiver will end on August 31st, and we will start the National School Lunch Program back on September the 1st. Any questions about that?
Amy, dealing with the yellow buses, I know we're going to get to this, but the use of the yellow buses all depends too on whether or not the governor approves that, correct?
Yes, sir. Well, actually, because of his, and I've got it, because of his executive order he declared on March the 10th, as long as you approve it, then those buses can be used because he's declared the state in the state of emergency. So if the funding is there and or we find other means to fund those buses, we can continue to use those buses.
So to be clear, Mr. Chair, that's the very good question that you asked. And with what he's declared, your approval tonight will allow us to use the yellow buses. But the question is, where will the pay come from to pay the drivers to buy the gasoline? At this point, that's what we're hoping is that they let us use the transportation funding like they did in the spring. If they say you can use the bus, but you can't use our money, then that's where we've got to go out and try to find that additional funding. So we're going to keep our fingers crossed and hope that they allow us to use them. But our understanding is that many districts have already made the decision not to move forward if they don't have something in place. And so that's what we're hoping to do.
Any other questions for Miss Amy?
No,
Thank you. Thank you, Miss Amy. And again, we thank you for all those that had a part with the child nutrition through the summer and making sure that our children were looked after. And again, kudos to you and all those that had a part of it, from the bus drivers to the maintenance people that kept the buses going, and even the cafeteria workers and all of them. We just thank you so very much.
Thank you.
At this time, I need a motion to accept the consent agenda.
Mr. Chairman, you have 9 yeses.
Thank you so very much. And our consent agenda has been approved. Our consent agenda has been approved. At this time, I turn it over to you, Dr. Taylor, for a custom policy update.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. At this time, we are asking that the board members approve the custom policy updates. Mrs. Dow, I was able to send this out to the board. These are some policies that we received after our last custom policy update. But because of the date that these go active, we need the board to approve them tonight. For that reason, that she sent them out to give you time to review them. So, ask for your.
Dr. Taylor.
Yes.
What policy are you talking about? The Title IX?
Yes, sir.
Policy? Are you talking about this Title IX and harassment policy?
Let me see how many policies were in it. Let me pull those up. Title IX in reports. Yes, sir. That's the one.
They said in those policies that they strongly recommended the board discuss this some of the stuff with the board attorney before they, I mean that's on the heading. I would like to discuss the issue with the board attorney before I move on.
Yes, sir. And so that's kind of the issue, Mr. Rhoda. I agree with you 100% that they send us these custom policy updates, and a lot of times they pass these based on legislation that comes through at the time, and so it doesn't always give you the amount of time that you need to review the policy, and that's kind of the tough part about it. So I don't necessarily disagree with that. I think you're right.
Well, what I need is, first off, we need a motion to accept these policy updates by Dr. Taylor.
I make a motion.
I have a motion by Mr. Barry Lewis to accept these policies. Do I have a second?
Second, Alan West.
I have a second by Alan West to accept the policy updates. Any discussion? And I think we had a discussion by Mr. Gary Rhoda. Let that be made known. Any more discussion about these policies before we vote on them?
Shouldn't we discuss them before we vote on them?
And so that's up to the board, Mr. Secretary, but I see 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, I think there's 7 new policies that updates to 1, 2, 3, 4. And I think we got 2 that have been moved. And I know there's a discussion why this update is necessary and why it has so many policies. And so that's about a page.
Mr. Chair.
Go ahead, Mr. Gary. Go ahead.
I think it's important to know that Kathy Boyd, Senior Staff Attorney for the North Carolina School Boards Association, has reviewed these policies and has determined that they are appropriate, as well as Justin Warren, the Staff Attorney for the School Boards Association. The 2 attorneys have reviewed them. I've reviewed them. Kind of the reason for the quick action, I guess, is that the federal law that resulted in many of these policy changes goes into effect on August the 14th. So there's kind of an emergency situation, and that was reflected in the letter that we got from the staff attorneys. Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Thank you, sir. They have been approved. Mr. Rhoda and Mr. Corey, any input on that? If not, I call for a vote.
I have input. I just don't think we have enough time for this stuff. There's a lot of stuff, and you have legal stuff in there that we might need to ask questions about also.
Well, here we have a motion on the floor. I will remind the board that you can vote it down. That is your option to do. At this time, we can vote, and if it carries, the policies can carry. If they don't, then we'll have to put them under review. Is that correct, Mr. Gary?
Yes.
Okay. I'll call for a vote, and I'll yield to Ms. Valerie Newton.
Thank you, sir. As I call your name, please indicate your vote. Chris Clark. Dennis Edwards. Thank you, sir. Barry Lewis. Gary Rhoda.
Nay.
Winston Roger.
Aye.
Corey Singletary.
Nay.
Alan West. Glenn McCoy. Roger Carroll. Mr. Chairman, you have 7 yes and 2 no's.
The policy updates will be updated, and again, if we have questions, we can still discuss these, Mr. Rhoda and Mr. Singletary, and we can give our concerns to Mr. Gary Grady. I'm sure he can help explain to us what we have. At this time, I'd like to turn it over to Miss Amy Stanley, please, for the waiver request.
Yes, sir. Executive Order 116 issued by Governor Roy Cooper on March 10th declared a state of emergency for the state of North Carolina. Under a state of emergency, a local board of education may use yellow buses for emergency management purposes as indicated in General Statute 115C-242. I am requesting that the board approves the use of yellow school buses until such time as the state of emergency is rescinded by the governor. It says pursuant to NCGS 115C-242 and as a result of the state of emergency declared by the governor of this state relating to COVID-19 crisis, I move to authorize the use of school buses as may be necessary to respond to the crisis included, but not limited to, the delivery of off-site school meals with said authorization to terminate at such time as the state of emergency ends.
Motion will be,
Mr. Lewis, was that you making the motion?
yes, ma'am.
Thank you, sir.
Mr. Lewis, were you making the motion as per the guidelines that Miss Amy Stanley mentioned?
Yes, sir.
Okay, I want to make sure we have that clear. I have a motion by Mr. Barry Lewis. I need a second.
Second, Vince.
I have a second by Mr. Vince Rozier. Any discussion?
I have a quick question, Alan West. Do we
Go ahead,
know
Alan.
how many Do we know how many yellow school buses we use or will be using to deliver the food?
We have 66 buses that we used last year. We have access to 81. I want to say, Dr. Henry, it said 25.
We used 25 for food delivery this past, from between March 16th through July 31st.
So 25 of the 81 we use, right?
Yes, sir.
Okay. Now, when K4 goes back and say we can still use them, will that be cut in half, or do you have any idea, or will it still be the same 25?
Yeah, and I know Dr. Henry is on the line. Dr. Henry, if you report the number of buses for K4, you told me that number, but I don't want to say the wrong number. So can you log on or unmute your mic?
Can you hear me, Dr. Taylor?
Yes, we can hear you.
Okay, we have a total of 66 buses in our fleet that we use for student ridership. 25 of those buses will be used for food delivery, and we're looking at approximately 27 buses to be used for K4 students. So we will have enough buses to do both food delivery and to pick up the students for K4.
Thank you so much.
One quick question. Also, will the buses that deliver the food be separate buses that are used to pick up the K4 students?
That's what we are planning on, Mr. Carey.
Okay, that's good. That's fine. Any other questions?
Yeah, I got one more. Of the 25 buses that you're using now,
yes, sir.
When K4 goes back, will you still be using the same number, or will that number go down?
We should be still using the same number, the 25, for food delivery. We should maintain that.
Okay.
Yeah, and so and I understand your question.
Go down. But,
yeah, I understand your question, and it's a very good question. And so to help people understand what he's asking, even though those K4 kids come back to school, you may still have children that are 5, 8 that live along that same route. And so it's kind of the same thing that we experienced when we did our summer feeding this morning. You identify the route, number of buses, and then you send that out. And so even though those K4 kids come back, that same route exists. And that's why we would end up staying with the same number. And so understood your question perfectly. Very good question.
Yeah, that's what I wanted to know. I appreciate it.
Absolutely.
Any other questions? If not, I yield to you, Miss Valerie.
Thank you, sir. As I call your name, please indicate your vote. Chris Clark. Dennis Edwards. Gary Lewis.
Nay.
Gary Rhoda.
Aye.
Winston Rozier.
Aye.
Corey Singletary.
Aye.
Alan West.
Aye.
Glenn McCoy.
Aye.
Roger Carroll. Mr. Chairman, you have 8 ayes, 8 yeses, and 1 no.
Thank you very much. We'll be able to use those buses if necessary, and thank you for your support, board. At this time, I'd like to ask a motion to go into closed session for the purpose of discussing personnel as per NCGS 143.318.11 to consult with the attorney if needed as per the NCGS 143.318.11 and to discuss student reassignment discipline as per the 1974 Family Rights and Privacy Act. Can I have a...
Mr. Chairman, you have 9 yeses.
Thank you very much. We'll see you in closed session. We just come out of closed section. Turning it over to Dr. Beatty now.
I recommend that you approve the personnel list action items.
Thank you very much. I need a motion to approve Dr. Beatty's action items.
Motion to approve.
I have a motion by Mr. Dennis Edwards.
I second the motion, Glenn McCoy.
A second by Mr. Glenn McCoy to accept the motion by Dr. Beatty. I yield to you.
Mr. Chairman, you have 9 yeses.
Thank you very much. At this time, I'll go to board members' concern. Any board members have any concerns?
Yes, I have a concern.
Okay. Mr. Singletary.
Yes, these storms that we just had, I heard they did a substantial amount of damage to the, well, not to the roof, but we just spent over $1 million on these roofs, and these roofs still leaking at these schools. What are we gonna do about that?
So we did have water penetration there, but I'll let Mr. Boyle speak to any other roof and water damage at the remaining schools, as well as the East and West Blake. He's coming to mind.
At this time at West Bladen, we are 30% complete. The contractor is running behind. We have not started any work on the atrium area. They started that today. And we're addressing that with the contractor, or the engineering firm of the contractor at this point in time. East Bladen, the top flashing had not been put on the metal yet. And the glass still had to be reglazed in the atrium area, which we have to wait till they're through putting the metal on before we can do that. And after that, we should be in good shape. We did have 3 leaks on East Bladen on the sidewall, and those were repaired today. And those were cut during construction at some point in time. Any questions?
Well, how many roofs are leaking in the county?
Every one, I'm sorry. I've got at least 3 or 4 leaks in every school right now. I've got 3 at Tar Heel. I didn't have any at Plainview. I had a couple at the Gladenburg schools, high schools, Spartan School, Discovery. I didn't have any. Listtown Primary, I didn't have any. I had a couple at Listtown Middle School in the cafeteria area, and that's something that's been ongoing now for about 4 or 5 years. And when we have that much rain, we're gonna have leaks.
Well, we are working on these roofs, huh?
Yeah, we're not through yet, but we're having to do some repairs. You know, a roof is an ongoing thing as far as in the older schools. We have different flashing leaks. We have some leaks in the metals, in the screws backing out of the metal. It just depends on what it is.
I understand that, you know, we're gonna have the storms, the hurricanes and storms of that nature. But we're putting a lot of money into these roofs, and some of these schools, the roof just been fixed, like E-Town Middle. That roof has been on there no longer than probably what, 4 or 5 years.
Well, at Listtown Middle, I need about $150,000 to stop that roof from leaking, and that's over the cafeteria area. We got to tear every visit cafeteria roof off, got to take the metal all the way down to the deck and replace it. It was done improperly when it was done.
I mean, we don't have when we get these contracts, we don't have any type of warranties that the company will cover these costs if something were to happen to these roofs with these leaks.
What do you specifically talk about? On the high schools, we're gonna have a 25-year warranty on leaks and workmanship. Listtown Middle, you have 0 warranty on it because it's improperly done.
Okay, for future reference, when we get these contracts for these schools, we need at least have some type of warranty or backing that these companies gonna come back and fix it, because they're putting these roofs on. We're not putting these roofs on. They're putting these roofs on. We're paying them big money. So they need to be able to be held liable for their work.
Okay, workmanship's a 1-year warranty in the state of North Carolina for a contractor.
Any more concerns by the board members?
No, sir, not for me.
I have, Jason, I have one thing on chair reports. Whenever we go into virtual, are we gonna be using the Zoom, or are we going some other direction with that?
For our students and staff, working with students, we're a Google Apps district, so they've already got experience working with Google Meet through Google Classroom. So we've asked teachers to continue with what the students are familiar with on Google Meet. We'll use this platform, Zoom, and GoToMeet for professional training, but the students are going to remain on the Google platform for them.
Okay, I was just wondering. But Dr. Taylor, that's all I have. Turn it over to you.
Okay, Mr. Chair, I have no other updates other than what I shared in my COVID update.
I now need a motion to adjourn.
I already made that motion.
I have a motion
to adjourn, Barry Lewis.